Hey, folks, this is going to be a great show. You know how I know? Because we're having technical difficulties. This is the third take. So, at any rate, here's what we got. We've got a show queued up for you that's going to teach you how to become immune to the lies and the deception of the global financial elite. The show is, hold on, my computer's doing something. Okay. The name of the show is Understanding Trump's America First Agenda. And what it basically is going to do is tell you something that I learned a long time ago that God showed me. And that's how to become immune to the lies of the global financial elite. And I'm going to basically run you through what I call a cipher that's going to let you have a different lens for when you listen to the news. So let's go to that first slide. And this one we're going to spend some time on. This is kind of the most important slide in the whole presentation. So this is how I cipher through material in order to reach conclusions and get to that 60,000-foot view that I get, where I can see with clarity what's going on and not be brainwashed. So the cipher basically is the key to understanding current events, so that you can listen to a news cycle that it's designed to make you walk away with a certain perspective, and you can get a different perspective, a deeper perspective. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you an example of how I use that. And I'm going to use Venezuela, because Venezuela is in the news right now. Every time we turn the TV on, is it going to take us into World War III or whatever? So what you're seeing over on the other side is my cipher for how I interpret data so that I can come away without being brainwashed. And the things that you see there, they're all got a commonality. If you put them all together, they are what is the requirement for having a sovereign government, a sovereign United States, a sovereign any nation in the world. If you don't have these elements, then you're a slave state. So let's break it down. And I'm going to walk through these using Venezuela as an example. So when you look at Venezuela, what are they telling you? They're telling you that Trump's got the Navy off the coast, and they're telling you that the reason that we're there is because of the drug trafficking. That's true. They always give you a piece of the truth, but then they also infuse that with some lies and with some subterfuge. So when it's done, you walk away and you're confused. You know some of the story, but they've twisted it so that you come away with the conclusion they want you to have, and you've got nowhere near what the big picture is. So we're going to talk about Venezuela through the lens of this cipher. Geopolitical realignment. Does Venezuela have anything to do with that? Yes, it's in our hemisphere, and what's happening is, through globalization, or rather I should say deglobalization, the power base of the world is shifting and the population base is shifting. And so what it's been for the last 300 years is that the global north has controlled the world, and the global south has had all the natural resources, but they've been denied access to them. But now something else more important, bigger even, is happening, and that is that the trade is shifting from the west to the east. And if we look at that, there's an outcome that we've got to pay attention to, and that is that India, China, and the continent of Africa are all in the Eastern Hemisphere, and together that hemisphere is 80% of the world's population. So if the United States of America is going to come back and become the leader of trade, like what we're trying to do is deglobalize, and we're trying to rebuild America's trade, we have to pay attention to what's happening in that hemisphere, but we also have to pay attention to what's happening on our hemisphere. Over here in the Western Hemisphere, we've got Canada to the north, who people may not realize it is not our friend. They're controlled by England, which is our arch enemy. And then down below, going through Mexico into Latin America and South America, that whole portion of the Western Hemisphere is basically controlled by drug cartels. And that's the story that they're telling you. We've got to create a situation where we can have better relationships with our entire hemisphere, and where all of those nations can get out from under the control of the cartels, have sovereign governments, and become good trade partners with America. So let's break it down. Sovereign currency doesn't have much of anything to do with Venezuela. Sovereign borders has a lot to do with it. We've got this 10 to 20 million people who've come into America since COVID. And they didn't just come. They got an invitation. They got money from the UN. They got money from the U.S. government. They got money from Soros. They got money from Gates. They got money from NGOs. And they also got a pass. Basically, an agreement was made that said, hey, we want you to send our cartels up to America because our goal is to collapse America from within. And we will allow egress from country to country to country to country, all the way up to Mexico and across the border. So sovereign borders have a whole lot to do with what's going on when you look at Venezuela. And then honest elections. It just so happens that the whistleblowers are beginning to come out by droves, and we're about to find out what happened in Venezuela, and it's really important. Basically, in Venezuela, Maduro basically was responsible for creating Smartmatic, which were the election machines that were used to steal the 2016 election. And yes, I did say steal. We're about to find out what really happened. And then those machines were sent around to nations all over the world to upgrade their voting systems, i.e. code word for steal their elections. And we're about to find out that 72 elections around the world were stolen. So if we're going to have a nation that's sovereign, meaning the United States, we've got to get control of election fraud, and that affects 72 nations around the world. So that's a huge issue. We've got to get election integrity, and we've got the midterms coming up, and then we've got the 2028 election. We have to get in and get control of Venezuela so we can get control of our elections and resource independence. What America has done under Carter, under Clinton, under Obama, and under Biden is set back and let China get their tentacles out all around the world and get access to the natural resources of nations around the world and put America in a very bad spot. You can't control manufacturing and trade if you don't have the natural resources that are required to build those products. So Trump has declared national emergencies. He's going around and he's doing mineral deals all over the world. So think about Greenland and think about minerals. Think about Alaska, and think about minerals. Think about our neighbor to the north, Canada. Something just happened. I used to work for the Canadian government, and Ottawa controls Canada, but the western provinces just did an end run around Canada. And what they do, they signed a pipeline deal with the United States. That's oil. So all of that is in this too. And then you look at Venezuela, and does it come up on the radar screen again when it comes to natural resources and to oil? Well, guess what? Venezuela has the largest known oil reserves in the world. And before the election was stolen, before Maduro got in there, that oil was in the hands of a friendly consortium, and basically we had access to it. Well, once Trump put the pressure on Venezuela, China came in, and now those oil reserves are controlled by China. So let's look at that general region and expand out. And if we look to the west of Venezuela, we've got Colombia, and it just so happens that that Latin America comes down and touches right smack dab in the middle of Colombia, giving Colombia an access to the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, access to the Panama Canal on both the north side and the south side. So when you're looking at Venezuela, you can't look at just it. You have to look at the region and the political implications for the whole of South America, for the whole of North America. And so what else is happening? There's a tiny little nation to the east, and that's Ghana. And guess what? They share that oil field that Venezuela has. And as it sits right now, we have a U.S. oil manufacturer that is control of that oil. And so Trump is there to protect those oil resources, because we can't have a vibrant economy if we don't have cheap energy. So all of this is relating. Manufacturing prowess, not right now, but it will in the future. Equitable trade agreements, well, that's happening all around the world. Trump absolutely has to get our tariffs in line and be able to have trade that's profitable for the United States of America. And global financial parity, absolutely. Why do we have the problems we have with all of Latin America and South America? Because they basically have the resources that are the real true wealth of the world, but they've been denied access to the infrastructure that they need. So if we're going to have peace and we're going to have good trade agreements with South America and all the Latin countries, we're going to have to get the cartels out. We're going to have to get the election fraud gone. We're going to have to get access to the natural resources that are there for their benefit benefit and our benefit. And basically, we're going to have to untangle the web that China has put in Africa and increasingly putting in South America, and get access to those natural resources and help those nations do this. Instead of selling their resources for pennies on the dollar, I hope America is going to come in and help them build the infrastructure and basically be able to be producers and not consumers. And so China has been doing an awful lot that we have to come in and get involved in. So with that, we're just about ready to go to the next slide. That's the one we broke down deeply and shared values. Basically, that can't happen unless we fix all of those things that I talked about. So if you look at the world through that lens, look at what you walk away with. It's a cornucopia of information that gives you the ability to see things in a different story, and they can't hide from you. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is an even a bigger picture. We need to understand the history. So America was founded when people got fed up living under that tiny little dot up there called England and the control of under feudalism, where they had no rights at all. They couldn't own land. They were taxed at whatever rate the king wanted to tax them. And we came here to have freedom. But basically, during the 300 years of the colonial era, England had basically gone around the world, and what you see in the red is that's the English Empire at its peak, and they are the nation the sun never set on. Whether we realize it or not, they amassed such wealth that they control the Vatican, they control the World Bank, they control the IMF, they control U.S. aid. In other words, they control money, and money controls the world. He who controls money controls the world. So the whole world is still ostensibly under the control of England as the power center of the world financially. Then there's transitions that go along. So if you go to that next box, they said, now we've got all of the land around the world, and now we need somebody to protect it. Let's use America and their Navy and their military. So what's happening? That's what we've been doing. And that's part why we're broke. We have been used as the police force, as the enforcement arm for England for ever since World War I or before. And now what's Trump doing? He says, no more. He says, we're not protecting England's property anymore. We're closing air bases, and we're closing naval bases, and we're basically looking at the homeland. We're going to protect America's interest first. Now what's happening? But to do that and make this shift geopolitical, we have to deglobalize, which is what I was talking about in regard to the first slide, and then we have to de-dollarize. So for those who don't know the history, America basically became the world's reserve currency immediately following World War I as something called the Bretton Woods Agreement, when the world said, all of Europe and much of North Africa has been destroyed. In the Middle East, the only country in the world with manufacturing and true wealth is America. We want you to be the world's reserve currency. Well, that's changing. And what's going to happen in the past, if we look at history, a great nation falls, it's conquered by another nation, and that nation becomes the next great nation. That's not what's happening this time, folks. We're going to go into this agreement, and we're going to come out of it not with China being the next world's reserve currency or any other nation. It's going to be deglobalization and de-dollarization, and what we're going to have is a basket of currencies from several countries that will all be traded internationally, so we'll share the title of world's reserve currency. But Trump's strategy, which we've talked about in past shows, is to orchestrate a situation where the dollar has value again because it's backed by gold and commodities. But the kicker here is he wants to make America the leading nation in the world as far as cryptocurrency, because that's convenience. People want to transact in something that's easy and quick and fast. And Trump is positioning us so that when we come through this currency reset, we will not be the sole reserve currency, but we will still be the dominant reserve currency. That's never happened in the past. And let's go over to the final slide. And now here we need to understand what's really happening. And basically what's happening is, starting with Carter, there's been a process to transfer power from the United States over to China. But now they're saying, It's go time. It's time for the total reset. So they have to collapse the entire geopolitical structure of the world in order to usher in their version of the reset. And what's that version look like? It just happens there's a slide on the screen that tells you about the secret shadow government. And this is what they have to have in order to control the world. So it's what we have to get rid of. We have to get rid of their control of the banking system. And that means we have to get out from under the fiat dollar and go to currencies that are backed by commodities, by God's economic system. We have to basically have control of the corporations of the world. It was Lincoln who said, I fear for our great nation because corporations are forming and merging with the banks, and they will control the world. That's been happening, folks. We have to undo that. And the politicians and the judges and all three branches of government have been taken over. So we're seeing the truth come out, and we're seeing that that whole system is being changed, and we're getting control back of our government with our balance of power that we were supposed to have. So one of the things that just happened this week, looking into the news cycles, is the Supreme Court said, the three branches of power each have their goals, and the president, the executive, sits at the top, and no longer can a federal district court come in and say to Trump, you can't deport people, you can't do this, you can't do that. So we're getting back control of the spheres of influence so that we can basically have the power that we need to have a sovereign government. And then the 8 spheres of influence, that all comes intricately to what Trump is doing. Trump is basically giving us back that power structure because he's saying, build America, buy America. And the saying that people use is, he controls money, controls the world. But you got to understand where money comes from. Money comes from the natural resources of the world, turned into manufacturers' goods, sold. And at that point, it becomes money. So we have to be able to control manufacturing and trade. And when we do, then we control the money. And when that happens, we become the people who control the spheres of influence, and we've taken the power away from the global financial elite. And then the next one is the 3-letter agencies. We've talked about this before, all the way back when we entered World War II. All of our 3-letter agencies were taken over because we needed a spy network, and we didn't have one. But the Council on Foreign Relations, who is committed, I'll read you that quote in a second, to basically have one world government, they gave us our intelligence agencies. And so we were corrupted from the very beginning. And then you go to the UN, and what happened is, at the end of World War II, on the 3rd attempt, the global financial elite finally got a governance body that allowed them to control the world. And we've got to go in and look at their support organizations. Look at NATO. That's the military enforcement arm. Look at the World Bank. That's how they control money. Look at the World Health Organization. That's how they control us by controlling health. Look at World Trade. That's how they control commerce. All of that has to be taken in consideration if you're going to understand what they're doing to us. So here's the punchline. The Council on Foreign Relations is the American branch of a society which originated where? In England, our mortal enemy, and believes national boundaries, that has to do with Venezuela and South America, should be obliterated and one world rule established. And look at who said that. Dr. Carol Quigley, who was a CFR member and just happened to be the mentor to President Clinton. And isn't it amazing? So the truth will set us free. More than that, the truth is setting us free. Let's go on down to the next slide, if you would. And this is something that I've talked about before. What I'm doing is we're now at the final battle in this battle to see what this reset looks like. And so I'm going back over stuff that I've been talking about for 2 years and basically laying it out for you so that you can have clarity as we walk into what's happening here. So basically, this is the control mechanisms of the world boiled down even deeper. You've got to control natural resources. You got to control manufacturing. You got to control trade, because that converts into money, and that gives you control of all the spheres of influence. And so that means basically right now, our family and everything we believe about what a family is controlled by the global elite. The religion is controlled. Our education system is controlled, or was, when Donald Trump came in, the first thing he did was get rid of the federal education department. And in the last few weeks, we've seen that there's no more LGTB in our schools, and there's no more story times from transvestites, and there's no more DEI, and there's no more men and girls sports. Things are changing. And then we're getting control of the media. Trump has Truth Social. Elon Musk has his, and CNN's about to fall. And then we look at the entertainment center, watch Disney, they're in trouble. And then we go to politics and we see the numbers of indictments that are coming out. And then we look at the economy, and what we need to understand is they tell us that, oh, tariffs are terrible, 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 terrible. No, you got to look at history and understand that that's how America became great in the first place, when they put tariffs on England so the American people couldn't afford English goods, and we were forced to innovate the Industrial Revolution. And guess what's on the horizon right now? Trump set the stage before he ever left his first term, when he got the Supreme Court to reverse the Chevron deal, giving us access to some 6,000 patents. We're about to have a technical lot, a technical revolution, the likes of which the world's never seen. And the epicenter of it is the United States of America. And I just saw something come out from a prophet the other day, and I happen to kind of believe in prophecy, having been mentored by a prophet. And they said, look to forward. What's Trump been saying? America is going to be the auto manufacturer of the world, not any place in any other hemisphere, not Japan, here. And he said, and Kim Clement said, it's going to come out of Ford Motors. So watch. So okay, last thing, military complex. Basically, it was Eisenhower who said at the end of World War II, I fear for our nation because of the military industrial complex and the abuse of power that might come out of that. So what we've realized, if you've been following me for the last 2 years, is that every war we've been in, World War I, World War II, the Vietnam War, the war after 9/11, the Arab Spring, were all propagated on false flag events to do what? To drive us into prolonged wars. What did Bush say when he announced we were going to war after 9/11? This is going to be a generational war lasting 20 or 30 years. Why? To drive us into financial collapse. What do we find out of Vietnam? We found out at the end of Vietnam that it was not only a false flag event, but it had been drug out forever based on something called the Pentagon Papers. Go do your research. We knew that war couldn't be won, but we drug it out so we could drag America into debt. And then lastly, this is all the kind of things you need to know to be immune to the lies that they tell us. And basically, restoration of patriotism, Christian and family values is what is absolutely going to turn this nation around. So it was Stalin, I believe, who said, or Lenin, one of the two, who said, America's too strong to take on an frontal assault. But if we can attack them simultaneously from within, inside and without, then they might be vulnerable. So what they said is, if we can destroy America's patriotism, its Christian values, and its morality, we can destroy America. And so now we're being attacked from within by some 10 to 20 illegal immigrants who come here and again are economically collapsing America because we have given them entitlements. We put them up in 5-star hotels. We've given them phones. We've given them all kinds of aid, and it's collapsing America. Plus, many of those people are here representing foreign nations that want to see America collapse. We need to understand that Venezuela, that South America, that all of the Western Hemisphere is full of people who are parts of cartels. And so what has Trump did going back to Venezuela? He said all the drug dealers are what? Now they're international terrorists, allowing him to go into Mexico, to go into Venezuela, to go wherever he needs to go to clean that out so that America and all of the Western Hemisphere can have sovereign governments, and we can have good relations with our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the south. Let's go on down to the next slide. And I'm just trying to wrap up 2 years of stuff for you because things are getting ready to pop, 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 pop. So we're getting control through deglobalization and de-dollarization of the political swamp. And every day I turn the news on and I see, oh, Comey's getting indicted, Brennan's being indicted, on and on the list goes. We're draining the swamp. We're getting out from under the fiat system, and we are going to go to God's commodity-backed system. The corporations are in trouble. They followed the very imprudent directions of the global financial elite. I'll give you an example. Budweiser was told basically uh, every nation, every corporation runs on credit, and basically the global financial elite using their control of the financial system said, if you don't go along with our LGBT movement and our DEI, you won't get any credit. And so Anheuser-Busch was forced to put a picture of a transvestite on their beer, and they lost $27 billion. The corporations that have been involved with the banks and with the politicians to collapse America are also falling. So the politicians, those rats are leaving the ships, the banking system. Trump has all kinds of pressure being put on the Fed, and we're taking over the Fed just like Kennedy tried to do. When he was in power, and that's one of the reasons they kill him. And then the military industrial complex, it's getting hit. Trump is saying, no, we're not going to be the police force of the world anymore, and we're not going to fight endless wars. If we go in, we're going in, and we're going to win this war decisively and get out. We're getting control of the education system, getting control of the media, getting control of entertainment, getting control of religion. That spells freedom. That spells the outcome of the reset if we'll open our eyes and stand up and participate and be informed. Let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to tie this together in another way. All those 10 points are the same 10 points that were on the opening slide, but I'm giving them to you in a different perspective now. This is the America First agenda of Donald Trump, and what does it mean? It means that when all those things are put together, the goal is peace and prosperity and religious freedom. And you can't have peace and prosperity unless you have something very important that you can't have unless you have these 10 things. Every nation in the world has to be able to have economic parity. And it was Eisenhower who said, is there any nation, is there any man, any woman, any child that doesn't understand the principal cause of war is economic disparity between nations? So all of this stuff that we're looking at here is to basically result in deglobalization and de-dollarization so that every nation in the world gets a sovereign government, gets sovereign currency, sovereign borders, honest elections, resource independence, the ability to manufacture goods, equitable trade agreements, global financial parity, the key to peace and prosperity, and shared values and goals. The outcome, peace and prosperity, and the usher in of God's kingdom and freedom for mankind, and the unbelievable truth of the Bible poured out on the world in the form of the greatest revival the world has ever seen. That's what this is all about, folks. Let's go to the next slide. And now what we're going to do is see those 10 stars, see those 10 things. We're going to start to break them down one at a time so you can understand them. Now, this is a part of a two-part series, so we're only going to get through a couple of them here because I've spent a lot of time laying the foundation. But next week, we're going to get into the rest of it. So part 2 of this will be tomorrow, and the next week we'll do part 3 and part 4. So the first thing on that list is we must have sovereign currency. That means we got to have deglobalization and de-dollarization, and we've got to get out from under the fiat debt trap where every dollar printed creates a debt obligation that's left America in a position where people just simply can't afford to live. And so when we get that, and we get that currency control, it means we can have peace. We can end war. And so basically the takeaway here is we've got to control the money. And they lose the power if they lose their control of money. And that's what's happening. Trump is crushing the Federal Reserve, and the White Hats are crushing the central banking system all around the world. And we're going to go from fiat currency to God's economic system based on gold, on platinum, on wheat, on oil, and every kind of commodity that you can imagine. Let's go to the next slide, and let's see how that kind of economic system works. It's different than what we have right now. It's not just a printing press, printing money 365 days a year, 724. It's basically a system that takes all of the wealth of the world that's buried in the soil and says we're going to use that for money. And to do it, we have to have a highly technological society. And so what's Trump doing? He's positioning us to be the leader in that forthcoming technology, to be the crypto leader of the world. And he's using He's going to revalue gold to get rid of our debt as one of the mechanisms to get rid of our debt. And he's basically put stable coins in and XRP to give confidence back to the dollar, which is only worth about 2 cents right now, folks. And so here's what the new economic system looks like. Any mineral in the world can be used to manufacture what we need. And that's what basically the lifeblood of an economy. And what's going to happen is we're going to be able to use those commodities by using XRP that will allow all commodities to be fractionalized and digitized and basically used to transfer wealth around the world in a nanosecond for basically almost nothing. That is the engine that is going to run the new global economy. And Trump is setting up America to be at the forefront of that technology. Let's go to the next slide, and I'm going to share with you the genius of what Donald Trump is doing. The dollar is eroding faster than you can imagine. Let's go back and look at the housing industry. And everything really went hyper when we went into the planned and released patented COVID shutdown. And here's what they've done to us. At that point, everything changed. They went into basically what Sun Tzu would say, the final battle, the battle for to see who wins, and if the global financial elite win, or if the people of the world, God's people, win. And we're winning. So here's what Trump's basically done to save the world: establish U.S. leadership in cryptocurrency. And that's really, really important. Let's take Africa, for example. Basically, they don't have a lot of banks. Basically, they want to transact electronically. And if America is the leader in cryptocurrency, it means that our currency is going to be used throughout all of Africa and all the third world countries of the nation. And he's going to devalue the dollar. And why would he want to do that? Because that makes our trade goods more affordable. That's why he's putting that pressure on the Fed, unrelenting pressure to lower the interest rates. There's another thing happening. Until he gets us out from under this 37, now $38 trillion national debt, we have 1/3 of that being refinanced yet this year. He has to get our interest rates down because he's been brought on board by God to orchestrate a soft collapse of the United States economy. We have to get, if we have these high interest rates when we refinance our $38 trillion debt, we're likely to have a hard bankruptcy. What Trump is orchestrating is a soft collapse, very abrupt, very severe, but with an immediate rebound. And he's using XRP and Bitcoin to do that, to be able to give us the ability to take control of what is going to be the new economic system in the world and transfer from a fiat fiat worthless system to a commodity-backed system. And so basically, America is going to come out of this, not as the sole reserve currency, but thanks to Trump, as the dominant currency, backed by gold, backed by XRP, backed by Bitcoin, and utilized by crypto network that makes people prefer to use it. And along with that, think about this. There's not a nation in the world that, if given the choice, would prefer to be under Russia or under Iran or under China. Many things we've done in this nation, having been puppeted by the global elite, that were banned, but still the world trusts us more than any other nation. You put those two factors together, and Trump's pledge becomes the truth. He will make America great. He will make America greater than ever. He will make America respected. He will make America powerful. He will make America prosperous, and he will make us proud to be Americans. That's what's unfolding, folks. Let's go to the next slide. And we're going to run through what happens when we shift to this new system. Next slide, please. So this is it. Voltaire said, ultimately, just like what's happening now, paper currency, which was backed by nothing but a promise, becomes worth what it was always worth, nothing. So when we go to this new system, what you see on the screen no longer is possible. Once we're out of that system and based on things that have real intrinsic value, they can no longer create inflation, deflation, wage suppression, stock market manipulation, boom bust cycles, depressions, national consumer debt will go away, poverty and division will be obliterated, and global conflicts will be no more, because all the nations nations of the world will in one way or another be operating at some level of parity. And it's going to be possible because of the new emerging technology using quantum financial systems, XRP, blockchain, and all of the natural resources of the world that cannot be manipulated because they're based on intrinsic value, because they are the core elements that go into every product that's used in every household and in the entire world. We're going back to basics, folks. So that is the end of this presentation, this part. And let's go to the last slide. And I'll encourage you, this is a critical time. This book was brought out to give you the foundation of what's been done. And now it's time we're going to call the army of people together. And you need to have knowledge. You need to know what a republic is. This book, I urge you to buy it and read it because it will empower you. You'll know what made America great. You'll begin to understand Donald Trump's strategy in a way that you don't understand it now. You'll know how they've systematically put us in the economic situation that we're in, and how we get out of it. But I want to make an announcement. There's another book coming, and it's been done for 2 years. God gives me things well in advance. And 2 years ago, I named it Liberty Crusade, Restored Republic. Now, before it came out, I had to rewrite a large portion of it so that it was up to the absolute minute on what's going. But it is the format. This is the foundation for understanding what they've done. The next book is the foundation for understanding how we restore our republic and get it back to America is in a position to once again become the most powerful nation in the world, the nation that the entire world trusts and wants to lead, wants to follow. So basically with that, we'll say goodbye for today, but I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I've got this new book coming out. I'm going to release it in the middle of January for pre-sale, and it'll be for sale for everybody probably the first week of February. When it comes out, I'm kind of setting the stage here. I need all those who follow me to buy that book immediately. Here's why. Because I don't have a huge number one, number two, three or four or five publisher behind me. Got a really good sound publisher, but we don't have the reach that those big people have. So I need you to buy my book, and I need you to write an endorsement, because it's critical that in the first 30 days of the release of this book that we get some really, really good PR out there. So please, when this comes out, buy this book and take the time to write an endorsement for me. So with that, we will let you go. We'll see you tomorrow, actually.